Okay, now the sound on. Nobody say nothing wild. Including me.
Wait, so you sent it out? I'm just not caught up.
So I sent 2 emails because people asked to be on the chain after the first one.
Oh, cool.
The second one's completely complete.
Do I have either of y'all email? Oh.
We never rated, so.
Yeah, I never. Because I was going to email y'all the link.
Oh, yeah, send it to me. It's just I'm Taylor Sanchez. And if you could you say
I'm Taylor. Wow. I actually have that.
I don't think you probably have it from something.
Fucking high school.
Probably have mine too, then.
She can forward it to you.
True.
I think I might have Taylor's from like some high school shit.
do you have Darius by chance?
Yeah, I got to.
Yeah, if you did.
Okay. I sent it to him. Speaking of that, Taylor, the funniest thing is like being on the CETA account, you get to see the comments. Why the most recent comment is on me and Abby video from CETA. This man was like, here's a link of someone really debating real adult intellectuals. I was like, damn. As in not reference to us, as in he dropped the link of someone else talking about Christianity in the comments. Like, this is a real debate.
Why does it say more sharing? It says round 6 military state. You don't have to worry about it right now. Oh, maybe not.
It should say
Oh, that's right.
the Shirley 2017 round 7 OUPS
Okay,
versus.
well, maybe it's just a preview. I only have one hint, so I don't worry about other stuff like my startup. No, I got two.
So that you can get back and do,
I'm
get
bad.
help base, you please.
I'm bad.
So then I can get back home and there you go.
Okay.
You could have just not debated and hosted. Come on. Could just be a host. Okay, come on. Alright, we're all good.
Yeah.
Tell that to the people you beat. Single-payer healthcare debates are inevitable, especially with young activists. The dominant theme centers around the working class that makes single-payer inevitable. Balmer 1024, the single-payer movement's fierce and energetic base is driven by the reality of the people who lose their lives every day. The battle for universal healthcare is working its way to the forefront of the class-struggle majority. 6% of Americans, 67% under the 30 feel the federal government should ensure universal healthcare. Grassroots forces for single-payer against the team growing. Hundreds of organizations with membership in the million socialist union members and activists across the country are actively discussing, strategizing, and debating the route to single-payer victory, the test, and the obstacles that stand in the way. Single-payer is by no means beyond reach. The man clearly has the potential to become a galvanizing force of the labor movement. So secret the burden of Medicare for all bill has no chance of passing. The point is the force of conversation. They regurgitate the insurance lobby, a mass independent political force that would spread like wildfire once it emerges and establishes its validity. The demand for single payer could be top of the agenda, but putting single payer under a rubric of the working class without explicitly challenging racism fuels white nationalist fascism. Matthews 2017, alt-rightists and Trump's conservatives endorse a single payer insofar as the alt-right have a coherent economic agenda, rejection of the free market ideology, crucial to conservatism, and Trump supporting alt-rights case with the single payer part of the vision part of ideological purity. The economic issues that is less important than welfare can be accommodated if it serves all the goals like building a base among the whites. Main arguments that Trump is about their movement. The Republicans become a part of the economic nationalism and Trump care passes left is incredibly thin. The Trump is portrayed as populist vision. Single payer considered serve white people, given the right to answer to appeal to the Democrats and encourage the growth of the alt-right. As soon as the healthcare becomes a public issue, the alt-right government would use the power to promote the more vigorous, healthy, white racist, single universality is becoming. It is that it helps working white class white people without making them enroll in meat testing programs associated with black and Latino beneficiaries. In addition to fueling white nationalism, the current debate surrounding single payer ignores the foundation of America's original healthcare sin. The creation of healthcare system finds its roots in the transatlantic slave trade. The modern manifestation of crisis in healthcare is a persistent slave health deficit that continuously places black people in a structural position of health inequity. The call for quality national health insurance as part of the conversation is intrinsic to understanding how health is misallocated. Randall 2002, current health disparities is traceable to slavery. African Americans will suffer. The reparations should be viewed as an obligation to make the repairs correct to harm done by the past wrongs. African Americans lag behind every health indicator. Enslavement was had to strain the interior taxing current system of black health is based on the long-term neglect of the bill to step health deficit. The deficit only removed with the United States eliminated disparity taxes to healthcare quality, healthcare to eliminate racial discrimination, the targeting healthcare citizens, African Americans, and focus on the research-specific health programs confronting assuring universal healthcare, assuring comprehensive healthcare workforce, and increasing knowledge about the health and health of black persons. Reparations would use the expanding insurance coverage of African Americans would have government-based insurance. Reparations will provide the hospitals, clinics, alcohol, dental health clinics in the African American community, assures a confident healthcare workforce in black communities. Proximity increases utilization. African American physicians have been important part of filling the availability gap. Reparations could increase the availability of providers in the community, providing scholarship for blacks to enter the healthcare profession, providing economic incentives to doctors, assure the cultural competence, providing financial coverage for health does nothing, increasing compliance after the bill. Reparations would ensure the R&D will be focused on health issues of African Americans, racial inequality in healthcare, persistence by laws against racial discrimination because the inadequacy of titles like political uniformity in different states associates relied on the individual complaints of personal legal system. Has difficulty addressing unthinking discrimination and appropriate legal structures is essential to eliminating the institutional and cultural racism. For institutional racism, reparations will facilitate the provider data collection and data reporting. More importantly, reparations will support the health of people of African descent in America. And anti-blackness is a global modality of genocidal violence. Is the founding system for all dominance and hierarchies. Rodriguez 11, the single institutionalization of racist state violence in the United States enforcement regime liabilities and sociological genocidal racial slavery within the American nation building project reforming slavery and the anti-slave violence describes the slavery and the post-emancipation USA craft. The animated historical logic behind the formation of the imprisonment regime locks up well over 1 million black people. Contemporary U.S. prison regime must be essentially understood as constituting any power to define the state concept of race. The white subject tribes on the assumption that you will never be the target of racial genocide. Things of change style of process language, John D. Down, sex part of the later secondary to raw relations of balance that white people inhabit in relation to the racial, the objects of genocidal racial substructure that formed and now finally displaced by the juridical and cultural implications of slavery's abolition. Logics of racial genocide may survive the apparent destruction of classical white monopolies on the administrative reparations that long mobilize these logics, but flourish with these reformist measures as diversified racist and white supremacist apparatuses. Thus, Varun and I affirm the United States federal government should provide health reparations in the form of national health insurance. Our affirmation is not one that pretends that Trump can implement single payer. It's an affirmation around the value of individuals affirming national health insurance from a perspective of health reparations. Not Varun and I per se, but individuals throughout America. This heuristic changes how we research and how we as a society function. It's crucial for us to understand that it's not merely about giving money back, but changing how we think and function. Out of some 2005 disparities in black health are deeper and older than legal forms supported by powerful social institutions. Efforts to eliminate disparities will require more transformative than Title VI medical research of holistic history, slavery, racism, segregation, and healthcare. The dominant models look for the diagnosis of social health and effects of being black on the reparational analysis. Applied history and social context are front and center, and the weakness of legal equalities may include the reparations will require transformative change rather than another programmatic band-aid. Health is not a peripheral, but a key indicator of how society structure eliminating disparities in black health is a revolutionary step in social justice. Black mortality rates have significantly higher than white rates, resulting in 72,000 accidents black deaths per year. These disparities may persist for many generations, even in absolute health. Increased black disparities of all types point to a deeper problem in our society. Inequality has become a pathogenic force from the inception and Atlantic truth. System medicine treats the blacks as culturally inferior minorities. We rebels and medical voices asserting that the innate equality state and federal governments and institutions actively support the two-tier healthcare system that is up to the current slavery and segregation. Any attempt to remedy the health disparities cannot be limited to mere legal fictions. The token efforts will always be confronted with the troubles of the 73,000 excess black deaths per year and continuing the lack of in black life expectancies. Correcting disparities is worth the goal because it requires successful massive structural changes in society. Litigation may be a dynamic strategy for black reparations. Continued losses is unlikely to success is not a sum of money. The remedies and quality of health outcomes achieved that will require remarkable changes. This reparational analysis as a heuristic device will result in finding large black health disparities reported as policy making tool. Reparational analysis is holistic. Many factors influence health, including residential segregation, wealth, income disparities, and inadequate public health and employment. If these factors are just immediate causes, then the remedies must run broadly and deeply. Even if unlimited to remedies, the healthcare system would have to be done for financial access, geographic access, accommodation, discrimination, cultural competency. These will not only improve black health, but also put a positive spillover effect to society as a whole. The heuristic moves beyond the atomistic search for individual discrimination. Reparational analysis avoids the tyranny of presentism, given the history of underrepresentation and agency indifference. Relying on the government agencies as ill-advised. Reparational analysis suggests the need for the private right of action. The injury span through many generations inflicted remarkable crime against humanity. The remedy is likely to be equally powerful, successfully equalizing black health in America will require such major social changes that still perfect the rising tide will lift all boats. The use of reparations is necessary to call out anti-black thinking. Tying reparations to healthcare is part of a necessary strategy to understand that health is sociological, not biological. Failure to do so condemns black America to death. Smith 2013. Many whites are convinced that the enduring racial inequalities are rendered by the individual responsibility that is bootstrapped by ignoring the paradox to fail. The black Americans is attributed to individual responsibility. White Americans neglect to acknowledge the effects of centuries old white racism. White notions of very basic success ensures that black Americans linger a perpetual state of marginalization by the viable across healthcare, education, housing, employment, and politics. The African Americans should receive free necessary healthcare in all areas of life. These may not exist in vacuum. Historical domination of lead disenfranchisement gives our two persons from a disease foundation deep within themselves biological pathways because of racial discrimination. Schools of fair institutions are more vulnerable to premature death, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, certain cancers, cardiovascular disease, and other serious health-related outcomes. The lesson the burden of African Americans should be given federally sponsored healthcare, unencumbered access to quality services, as well as black Americans again substantial ground toward uplift of the elimination of health disparities. National health insurance under a rubric of reparations reverses interest convergence to cause white people to understand the value of reparations. Crossley, 2016, attempt to persuasion failed to acknowledge the role of racism and disparities of creation. Persistent disparities exist across many axes. Poverty, low socioeconomic status. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Computational process plays a vital role in holding accountable those who work in the healthcare industry. They open up a space for research, reflecting conversation by well-meaning whites, sometimes whites would end discriminatory policies when the cost of maintaining them became too high. Activists may help make racial injustices so uncomfortable for whites that they find it in the best interest to take action. Benefiting collection provides precedents over continuing manifestations of institutional racism are not inconsistent with efforts to align interests. Activists demand self-persuade hospitals of self-interest in adopting strategies to target disparities in communities. Interest convergence appeal need not deny the role of racism in order to provide hospitals an inviting alternative for moving forward. Your role as a judge is to filter arguments through a role of personal accountability. Every word or the action we engage is reviewed through the lens of care. Only seeing this debate through that lens can produce pedagogy that's redeemable. Collins 90. Our society allows for people to be totally out of touch with their and everybody else's feelings and try to change the idea of singular emotions. And intellect has distinct and ethic and personal accountability is the final dimension of the alternative epistemology. Not just the individuals develop the knowledge claims through dialogue, but people are expected to be accountable for the knowledge claims. The assessment of knowledge claims simultaneously evaluate the individual's character, values, and ethics. You reject Eurocentric masculinist belief that probing an individual's personal viewpoint is outside the boundaries of the discussion. Emotion, ethics, and reason are interconnected. Alternative knowledge claims are routinely ignored, discredited, absorbed, marginalizing existing paradigms. If the epistemology used to validate knowledge claims comes into question, then all prior knowledge claims under the dominant model becomes subset. And after a century of feminist epistemology calls into question the content of what currently passes as truth and challenges the process of arriving at that truth, forcing debaters to role play stops the debate about personal accountability that's fashioning into change. 2001, modern theory began with the utopian hope that science and technology would create peace and an apocalyptic nightmare. Math that's symbolized by the Auschwitz Hiroshima, the underpinning of the ethical consciousness is taken from kind of organization through psychological doubling enables individuals to deny they're responsible for their actions. Bureaucracies encourage a total surrender of self, unquestioning obedience to the higher authority, whether God or political leader. So when one acts of professional self on behalf of the institution, one can say it's not I but a higher authority that's acting through me. I'm not responsible. The one see is reparations as critique and evolving process, not a closure. Our critique reveals how anti-blackness is smuggled into the collective identity of every debate we have about healthcare. Connected to material change, a call for reparations that are provocation designed to destabilize accounts of U.S. society that discount anti-black violence. File for 2005 to demand for reparations is called to grapple with ways of passing love and objective transformation of society. The injuries are not only produced but are inflicted in new suffering. It's not yet finished when not only the suffering that must be endured, but also suffering that can still be redeemed. The white people develop another phase of contemporary practices, making historical formation contemporary, making it an outrage to the present that's exploding. Both the ways in which it's been remembered, the way in which position historical consciousness has passed the opposite approach to reparation. Reparation politics can be redeemed through the past specific contemporary practices of justice, providing critical discourse that serves as a kind of way to raise mind language and incorporates the knowledge of the past. The present practices being seen as a kind of genealogical politics, critique offers the possibility of analyzing existing discourse. It's hard to understand how subjects are fabricated or positioned by them. That was cut at position by them.
Okay. Alright. I guess I want to start by asking why the focus on reparations. Like, why is that as a rhetoric, one, important, and then two, how is using that as rhetoric going to materially change the way in which antagonisms between white bodies have with black people?
Sure. So why the focus on reparations, I think, is answered by our Alderson evidence that discusses reparations as a heuristic for analysis in national health insurance. It says that
I'm asking what that heuristic is.
Yeah, so it forefronts the history of slavery as a starting point for a call for national health insurance. The Alderson evidence then outlines things that can be done within healthcare as a response to that forefronting of
For example,
that doesn't really answer. That's fine. That doesn't really answer my question for how this relates with white people understanding national health insurance as a form of reparation. Sure, maybe white people know that slavery was a thing, right? I'm wondering how using that kind of discourse is productive for the antagonism.
So two levels of this. Alderson evidence talks about how that reverses the research paradigm in epidemiological research to be focused on the structural neglect of the healthcare system rather than reducing healthcare inequities to black cultural preferences. The second part of this
wait, can I
is
unpack that real quick?
What do you think
don't overtalk me. The black preferences portion. Sure. What is that?
Right. So that current epidemiological research has used health inequities as a way to victim blame black people for the problems of access to health treatment. Alderson talks about why the reparational heuristic recenters that by focusing on historical analysis. We see that health insurance systems are not the part of the groups of population.
Like on a material, real level, right?
Yeah.
When we say the word reparations and we talk about the gratuity of slavery, we talk about the history of health insurance in black communities, I'm wondering how teams like Kentucky, I'm wondering how white people just writ large, when they understand reparations under your frame, will challenge the way in which they relate to white or black people.
So two things again, right? Our evidence is using Richard Delgado's theory of structural reparation, that when you change it from monetary inducements to a literal overhaul of the entire health insurance system. It's a way of
How is
changing
that a
very
literal
basis for
overhaul of
society.
the entire
Because-
medical system? This does not change the way in which treatment. Right. It's a question of access to these places.
So it would do two things. One, our artisan ever talks about things like higher reimbursement rates for hospitals with black doctors to incentivize
What about
doctors
those
who are
that
going
don't
through
have
medical
black
school.
doctors? I'm kind of confused for like the
Well,
white
those are the-
people portion. Like black people sure can probably create some kind of critique for the ways in which reparations are productive. I'm wondering for these ways in which white people create those
Okay,
relations.
this is important. The Crossley evidence uses Derek Bell's theory of interest convergence that white people will only care about racial justice when they see something in it for them.
Why is
in the
that
context of the app, that is the national call for health insurance that
Right.
we then
Why
priority
is
set
that
for black
impetus?
people.
Why should we go to them?
Because they don't die. They don't go away. Right? The reality is that white
Because
people
So we
will
should
always...
accept their presence.
No.
But isn't that kind of a turn to your Rodriguez evidence
It's
for why
not.
white supremacy creates the structures for like how we understand?
Right, but we don't disagree that there's
systematic-
challenges to white supremacy.
I just want to show we gotta go to white people. They should come to us.
That's it's kind of exactly the opposite, right? It's like what we
That's
like to
not-
call white
that's
people
fine.
do the thing that
Those
they
sense.
think is
Okay.
important.
Those sense.
Yeah.
It's paper. What I gotta do with my paper?
Wow.
It depends on what they want to do with your paper and the 2 weeks.
Right.
We will
Next to
make
that.
the case
Next
that
to
Ricky
that.
was saying. Yeah.
One page?
It's not like a.
I'm cool with that.
I forgot that's the
Let's do
whole
this.
way.
Yeah. We don't really
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
Honestly. Yeah, we mix that.
At least we don't lie. And they're like, oh yeah, 2 pages.
I'm gonna tell you, yesterday I judged Mars and them, and I put it right next to it, and my flips was all done.
We are different. We're not them.
Yeah, but like, I also don't want to set it up though. Like that might not happen in this debate. You know, like.
I will accept personal accountability and responsibility. I probably fucked it up.
Oh, we're still not them.
And you are not that. Right, so we'll put Neg right next to this.
Yeah, we're gonna do the one page. We'll go with them.
Okay, so
And just
right
keep it
next
easy.
to it. Okay, yeah,
That's cool.
So that's it.
We all agree.
So if they have it up there.
Yeah.
Call me. Your deepest urge towards survival. Call me and my brothers and sisters in the sharp smell of your refusal. Call me. Roach and presumptuous nightmare on your white pillow, your itch to destroy the indestructible part of yourself. The Wrong Menace by Archery Lord. Call me your own determination in the most detestable shape you can become. Friend of your image within me, I am you, and your most deeply cherished nightmare scuttling through the painted cracks you create to admit me into your kitchens, into your fearful midnights, into your values at noon, in your most secret places with hate. You learn to honor me by imitation as I alter all, though your greedy preoccupations through your kitchen wars and your poisonous refusal to survive. We're the roach, the most intimate form of your existence. Your existence is only possible through the pathologization of our bodies. Understanding humanity is constituted as subject with certain properties. The notion of capitalism incompatible with survival of those not included in the social world. The persistence of black life is what you fear, but what will continue to shape the future. Gums 2010 using the figure of the roach, the description of the persistence of black life among the limits of patriarchal family and internalized values of capitalism. What everyone fears naturally is invincible burn with the roach. And this film redefines survival of the roach, and the speaker of this film. This film reminds us that it will survive the social world we seek to exclude from the present. The attempt to destroy the black mother's fiber of repeated violence against within the black community, surviving the infinite and the command form echoes hero, but describing the oppositional future in which oppression and self-dependence of a society and a hated other even within itself that thrive itself is an indelible impact on whatever writer of the need for transformation of the public self survives in both forms, initially as imperative and finally as potential survival moves beyond the context of biological life into an analysis of impact. The cockroaches question the category of the human argument that survival in general, so human survival not the same project and highlighting the way into the discourse of humanity's particularized operating independence of the humanized other. Call me as an echo reproduction mimicking the way that humanism defined and haunted by to reproduce other to reproduce the name of the other. The presence of the other, the friends humanism operates through property of the invading other as well as the right for property of the human who works troubles the property owner's desire and ability to secure property is the form of which a human is haunted by its contingency. Property describes the manifestation of life of radical other inhabits not only the privately owned space of the human but contingent subject to self. The non-human speaker of the poem compels the human to read it to embody her difference. The form of the poem critiques and transform the form of the human, pointing out the definition of human with the specific form of capitalism, i.e. the human as a form of property instead of a form of life or spirit. Incompatible with survival. Now the history of insurance is inextricably tied to blackness, endless transfiguration, so space and necessary risk to drive for a health insurance policy, drive invest in the calculus of dispossession, the accumulation of black flesh, or the creation of a healthy human subject to start 2016 link. Risk in those asterisks, history still see in the beginning of insurance, the history of the change begins with the sea bottomry, general average, terrible risk scenario, Jackson Lens. That film is vocabulary and her direction and own rights in circulation, the risk and insurance, the asterisk human, what I'm there for calling the transit that is a place condition, the process of appears alongside in the relation to the black Atlantic, but also in excess of its current strands hold the place open for thinking from an into that position. Now healthcare reform can't change black since proximity to death as a necessary precondition for legal congruency. Will be no investments in the slave create an effective register for white empathetic identification of black suffering that understands gratuitous violence as a temporal fixture. Sharp 2016 through a white liberal imagination likes to feel temporarily bad about black suffering. There's really no motive empathy can replicate the daily strain of knowing that as a black person you can be killed simply for being black. To be in the wake is to live in the nose, to live in the no space of the law is not found to respect. To be in the wake is to occupy the time, space, place, construction of productivity through the enactment of a healthy human subject trait facilitates a more insidious and encouraging forms of whiteness as the part of capitalist form of care that marks whiteness as property for the creation of the subject. Those who production of whiteness as object is produced the figure of the black mother, symbolic exchange of her liver precedes violence as immaterial and constitutes the world their criminal presence themselves intended according to the United States Department of Health and Human Health Services. Black children are more likely to be placed in foster care even when they have the same family circumstances as white children. Once in foster care, black children are often called orphans whether or not their parents are alive. In foster care agencies are heard to suffer the rights, the legal rights of black mothers. The continuing state practice extends attempts to control the biological reproduction of black women into their head. And to an intervention of the ability to socially parent children, to the pathologization of black motherhood and mothering simultaneously bodies gain value not because they use of this objects, but because they serve the needs of exchange. Superfluities and interference produces value without use of the superfluity demonstrates how black life can be expendable, while black life remains crucial to the perpetuation of the security of science dispense with black life value. The time uses a criminal change now exceeds what precedes materiality. Black mothering includes not only the biological and domestic reproductive labor of black mothers, also a mode of survival that redefines productivity. Productivity is interesting to produce a rough world. Its criminal presence is a set of persecution of racism. The poster the operates the very set of production of black life beside the projection of blackness and characterized, criminalized, and demonized. The figure of the black mother country needs me. If I were not here, it has to be a better black woman. Time to lesson of objectification. The mark of maternal body is a personal fancy. The different lives have inherently different words. It constitutes a set of which intervene in the grammatical inscription and expendability about flesh, whether it's a modifier queer and black in order to disrupt the normative incorporation of mothering into the narrative of patriarchal family. Black women in the United States is back to the patriarchal order of family. The model markets to the patriarchal family functions are infinite. The criminalization of black women whose constructive and start comes before the criminalization writing is the queer possibility of the narrative pathology struggles to close the focus on the black queer material enables the projection of their subject to features that reproduce ownership over through others surrounding imagines connection and accountability and prediction of the mobile world. Understand future, the as progressive narrative assumes the liberation of time is possibly outside of violence, mystifying the ways in which libidinal investments of captivity overdetermine the possibility of creating a future that's not already concealed and codified by the state to entrap blackness. Dylan 2013. The state organizes populations, institutions, forces, knowledge of the regulatory imagination and discipline vision. The state ensures that the future can be extrapolated from the present by managing, converting, and eradicating the future before it arrives. It uses preemptive action to make its imagined future come to pass when the things are better now with the state and non-state violence continue to target racialized gender pronouns of the same way that, but under the new name of the future. It is not a future that awaits us, but the present and the past that we have been living. Progress of the name is named as a time in this cyclical and forcefully forgetful progress relations or former temporarily used by the state and justifying the race violence that continues under the name of justice, equality, and democracy. The state declares change will come and to be patient and trust in the progress of time. This is a notion of history where the use of passion of time washes away the violence of then and now, and so the future is free from the force of the past. And this way the past constructed a space of radical alterity, the reparations, the progress of future, but sexual balance will be left behind in the progress of revolution. Time does not erase what has happened. It says dissolving terror and imbalance into the progress of the future, nor is the past and pace of place embedded in the present. The present is possessed by the logic of the protocol of racial capitalism, type of perfect routine. Massacre that was and is repeated endlessly across time, space, and time in the post-colony, present, plantation, reservation, and on, not even though the captive flesh body has been liberated. The ruling episode that releases the dynamics of naming and evaluation remains grounded in the originating metaphors of captivity, mutilation, so that is neither time nor history or historiography, and its topics show movement as the human subject is murdered over and over again by the passions of a bloodless, no anonymous archaism. The future that a triumph of a tendency inscribed in the present is a place where the wreckage of then and now lives on. Now the domestic space of the U.S. is not a geographical location, but a temporal and spatial capacity for the human that allows the transcendence of a fixed location into universality. The human's rootedness in the landscape is enabled through the fungible black bodies to expand the master settlement and their indigenous clothes fashioned out of dead native skin. King 2013. The process of settling the land is a process that starts before arrival, and the shore settlement allows the settler master to become human with spatial coordinates because the native dies and the black becomes non-being. Settlement is assemblage of technology, the process of making and unmaking a body subject positions by settling. Time and space, the settler is able to become a stable and coherent autonomous human subject while they also experience hypermobility. Transcendence the settlers on finer movements, predicated on fixed folks and native black bodies. Clearing was only spoken as a now, never as a verb in the humans grammatical structure. Discourse with displacement represents actual displacement as if human renders the clearing the sack place. Void of settler violence and absent of indigenous bodies, the settler indigenizes themselves. The original issue for their indigeneity and buried is dealt within the land as a clearing. Black bodies are The raw and material and precursor of the space that makes space possible, but cannot occupy it, making a place while making a home. People attempt to create order in a homely sonic parent chaos of raw nature both bodies and lands of native and black with more states of chaos that need to be ordered. What is hidden in the settlement is not just the making of a physical location, rather the simultaneous process of rooting in order to launch the settler can actually overcome the particularity of place, body, gender, race, object, sexuality, and lots of the universal and abstract space. Humanist spatial and temporal capacity is so imminent on the whiteness of the effects and permutations of the topical questions, the kinds of white bodies that can mobilize in these universal combinations are seemingly infinite as well. To be savage or to be alive as exists in the realm of no-time space. On the alternative is a refusal to properly reproduce the codes of power, offer a possibility of writing the world radically different than the present. Gom's 2010, she who refuses to reproduce property reveals a dangerous desire for something different. She who refuses to reproduce properly bears the mark of the alternative, the mark of the criminal, the mark of the terrorist. She who refuses to reproduce property must be busy teaching us something else. She who refuses to reproduce the status quo threatens to produce a radically different world. Yeah. That's fine.
You good?
Okay.
Sweet. What does the alternative do in the face of growing pressure for health insurance schemes from like Bernie Bros and the alt-right?
We think that pressure is like a political manifestation of the history of anti-blackness. We think that the political pressure is something that we shouldn't internalize because that's bad faith. Our argument is that meaning making is a process that supersedes time and creates political manifestations that will inevitably change. There will be structures of anti-blackness that manifest politically, and that there will be change and resistance, and people, will be white supremacists. But it's a question of interrogating the meaning making process that produces those structures in the first place. We don't move outside of the home. We think you put.
I guess interrogating meaning making. Why is that necessarily mutually exclusive with an alternative call for national health insurance?
Like I was just saying, we think that you put the cart before the horse. We think, we're going to make arguments as to why we think reparations is a bad logic for addressing anti-black violence. We think reparations is bad for addressing the settlers' relationship to Native people. Why is it bad? You want me to make that argument now?
Yeah.
We think that fine. I mean, I can list a million reasons. I think that reparations is in the context of our sharp evidence. In the context of our sharp evidence, reparations assumes that there can be a value placed on the type of exchange of labor or the immaterial labor that is on top of or produced through the black female sexuality. And that type of.
I'm sorry. You said reparations assumes that value can be placed on the labor.
Right, that there can be an exchange to say that this is what we're giving you in exchange for the violence that we've subjected you to, the labor that you have done for us. Reparations as a logic assumes, right, 40 acres and a mule, as if that's sufficient for slavery, as if, right, those logics assume an exchange and that there can be ever a comprehension of the level of anti-black violence, or that it's even communicable. Okay. That's our argument.
Makes sense. The Dillon evidence about temporality, I'm confused why this links to the affirmative, which forefronts the history.
We think that you're a historical project. Our argument is that the ongoing critique, or I guess the snowballing effect that you have forwarded as reparations as a thought project to kind of deconstruct the way that white people relate to anti-black violence. We think that is the type of that through using that mechanism of reparations to kind of, or as a heuristic to kind of think of anti-black violence is something that replicates, right? It's something that like pushes resolving anti-black violence as something that we can do in the future, right? It posits that there can be an ethical relationship to a settler, that the settler can, exist in a space where there is not violence all around them.
Okay. 14 seconds. I'd like to review another question.
What's the function of the ballot in voting for this position?
We think that Sean should align himself with our refusal. Yes.
I don't trust white people. I don't think that we should engage them.
Sure.
I think those measures are problematic. I can go on a list. Reparations are bad.
Is it okay if we pause? We're just crapping out.
What's happening?
This one's just having a freak out. Is it cool if we like?
I'm not sure.
It's up to us.
Or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still down. Like, it's still responding. So it's whatever you want to do. I'm not gonna determine that. I figured we were just doing the
You going up?
That's how it is.
Just
Throw that shit in the trash.
I haven't seen Richard.
I forget that, like, this is recorded, so I gotta watch what I say.
I had nothing to add there.
I don't take
They
my
chose to stream me. I didn't ask them.
I just
Calls
forgot.
me circles.
I guess I should.
No, they get conversation.
Yeah.
She's a little.
Okay.
He already knows. Let's not
That was so
but that's a loss for
Don't
me.
be-
Everyone is
Does anyone have a time?
I was gonna tell you to offer it.
Yeah.
It's okay. I understand.
Sorry, bro. We want to know what your time is.
Repeatedly click the tab minutes, and then both little buttons at once resets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You sing? Go ahead.
Ready, Sean?
Oh, forget that.
Oh, you?
Yeah, already.
You do what you do.
She dancing.
Sure. The history of national health insurance in the United States was foundationally built through a system of slavery that manifested in a persistent black health deficit for exposing population to chronic illness, hypertension, and institutionalized neglect in healthcare. Vote affirmative to lighten your belt with the demand for national health insurance as reparation for historical violence. A framing issue for the rest of this debate is that the act of situating reparational analysis is more than a monetary inducement, but a societal call for an insurance scheme, a structural beginning with race rather than social economic status to challenge the health victim blending and policy prescription that is occurring in the status quo. The rest of the 2NC and the block is going to rest on a lot of mischaracterizations of the app as something other than negativity, but even in a world of which we kind of refuse the sort of reproductive futurism that they see is good is still going to be accompanied by a different world to come. In that case, we have to always prioritize the question of what health we ought to prioritize in our analysis of healthcare institution solvency, and this debate should prioritize structural change over harm reduction, because the global mentality of white supremacy has primed you against it, which means you filter the off-case of coercion through whether or not you think it ought to be a good idea that health insurance systems start from that institutionalized neglect, which would enroll things like black doctors within health insurance program, would enroll people through high-quality things like reimbursement rates for healthcare in black communities. All of these things are a product of changing the research paradigm, which is a unique net benefit to this pedagogy of the 1AC, even if you conclude that some aspects of the 1AC are untrustworthy, down the K proper, even if three top-level arguments in this case that anti-blackness is ontological at a structural level, which manifests itself through reparational analysis. The affirmative is necessary for a practice of insurance convergence. There's no response in the 1AC because our evidence is citing Jerry Bell that talks about the only way to get white people to onboard with racial justice is a kind of question of the economic ramifications that our own pockets. Our Hill Collins evidence impacts us about how we have to intervene at the level of public discourse because our language has a particular power to shape the way that publics articulate themselves, and the way that kind of disparity contributes and exacerbates itself through the public. They can be entirely right about their critique, but if it doesn't have a performative or rhetorical power that can challenge the sort of way that publics will produce a new healthcare system, it's always one that would produce violence. Secondly, is the all may be entirely possible to improperly reproduce, but it does not mean that all people should not improperly reproduce. Not necessarily all people should do that. You presented a good method for what black women or what people ought to do, but our audits and evidence talks about how
how in a public the takeover is happening now, and seeding that public conversation is what ensures things like Richard Spencer and white nationalists control how structural adjustments take place. Being able to be treated for illness may not be entirely due to structure that produces structural ill equity. Can always provide necessary intervention that enables writing, practicing, and crafting a way that you value communities is always something implicated by practice. About they have not made a claim that says that things cannot get worse. So it's a question of the link versus the link. Sure, we have uniqueness for what we as non-black people ought to do, in a question of historical accountability for those kind of balances. Permutation about making impossible demands or keep checking state power and creating more effective movements. It's not a question of whether demand happens, rather a possibility to end the world. That's Wilson Howard and Ted reparations such as the conceptually created loss of labor has to be reformed or articulated the part that's lost to the part that gain for reparation to make sense. And no such articulation would be like the word I support the movement, because I know it is a movement toward the end of the world, a movement toward the catastrophe and epistemological coherence and institutional integrity. Repair is impossible. Any struggle that can act as a piece together the artist world, giving all that cannot get this movement towards something so blindly they knew that it cannot be imagined. The only thing that will save us black making part of the human community, the concept of everyone would have no outside it could have no inside. Because everywhere struggles of convention, the same can be resolved. There problems that care are in and of the sort, but it's lack of the problem stuff of integrity struggle that cannot be resolved between parties, but can only be resolved by obliteration of one or both of the party you face with a set of psychic problems that cannot be resolved through any form of symbolic inversion. Right now, the first link of productivity with the health of life, one of the liberal investments seem as though they are never, but they're just a question of the intensity at which those things are made possible. There are certain white nationalists who have a very invested stake in things like health insurance being passed through a single payer frame of the app that reverses that process. Yes, there's some level of questioning about whether or not those liberal investments can ever go, but we should intervene at the level of that subject formation insofar as it shapes the conversations that are done by your own. Sharp even concludes in multiple pieces of evidence that healthcare for all would be a radical demand because it challenges the inequity of the structural humanist system that exists now. This is literally on her Twitter page as per the means that you have no offense for your critique app, and also next the insurance, like the sharp evidence is also not linked to the history of insurance. It begins with the song. Yes, we agree, and all those relations are functional forms that cannot be excused, but you have not answered that the app is not that same form of insurential flaming. It's one that does not use things like actuarial calculus to determine who or who not should not be given help, which avoids the worst explanations of the 1AC why insurance is bad, because it's an unconditional form of insurance that doesn't require a payment back from black people. The framing issue is the alternative has no other way to ensure that people can challenge things like the health deficit and the status quo, which means that we ought to do what is pragmatically pessimistic in the face of this violence. Secondly, is our argument about subjectivity. We denaturalize white humanity. It's isolated from the health concerns of black people. The act of reparation office interrupts at the level of property and rentier relations the notion that we can systemically ensure some populations at the expense of others is systemically challenged to the demand for reparations, because it's one that unites worker struggles against imperialism and colonialism that's more head and some of the struggle for reparation and represents the unfinished revolution which the democratic rights that have never been fully won by black people in the United States. Reparations demands addresses the internalized colonization that black people are still subject to in a country like the United States, where duty found to support the right to self-determination for oppressed nationality support and defend the struggles of nationally oppressed peoples have here and abroad against imperialism as part of the show worldwide socialism. Failing on futurity's bad offense, they block it privilege and do violence to Islamic defense. Futurity helps, it doesn't need to go present struggles. It's malbalance and 50. My response comes from my conversation on the ages of career color of struggle. That however there was a general sense of the issue. No future comes from a comfort or perch or privilege as a scholar immersed in the place of career color. Future is not just possible in necessity. We not think of a future as the very fuel of existence that animates energy. The promise of the career, especially in its hopeful dimensions, considered undocumented immigrant careers of color. They live in precarious conditions. They live moments that showcase fabulous velocity. This movement show provides some way to think of another day. Well, this myth called national naive hopefulness. Thinking about a future that's not alternative to the present. A potent way to think beyond and against that way to plant the seeds for transformation. We need to unravel the negativity inherent in the no future sense. And skip that part. And abandoning transformation of the state seeds politics for the raising status quo. They call for reparations, explicitly uncover state power, and take about forward. In fact, the reparation movement and control comes of politics that abandons the state faith and engagement of people. Seems no less quixotic than ever seeking the change to action. He's seeking the struggle over the proper use of state power. The force of the racial status quo is the greater danger. Demand for reparations that provides discipline, the use of fairness, instrument for remaining social change, and mystery since recognized disciplinary power of law is useful to vehicles to part out such an institutional public form explicitly linked to an international system of white supremacy. Global struggle. The reparation movement offers an example of oppositional non-concept to rely upon the U.S. nation state. Like politics can be oppositional only in its attack on white supremacy, but also in its simultaneous refutation of patriarchal power and the exclusion of other subcommunities and that institutions. That institution is extremely problematic is exactly why we have to change in this Crenshaw and ADA. The opportunity to define structure by features of ancient life trashing our offers others no idea of how to avoid the negative consequences of engaging in a reformist discourse. Their public struggles are a reflection of institutionally determined logic and structural logic. People only demand change in ways that reflect the logic of the institution that they are challenging. Demands for change that do not reflect institutional logic will probably be in fact reforms that they come from existing repertoire of options. Okay. The Indian something in the settled subject are not grounded within a particular line of racialization. Their relationship to the land is one that is problematic as bird and eliminates without necessary SML and examples of regulating normativity facility within imperialist signifying regimes assigned the signifying regimes inside of mass signifying who use faciality that applicable to all subjects and aberration hierarchical centered groups. The poles of the record current between the genocide and the slavery of the last American constructed the flag as a force of Africa, but they need this subsequent perception infinitely slowed or accelerated this slowed or accelerated perception stems from becoming in pathological colonizing condition of flux Indian pathology that constantly left intellectual spectrum to eventualize the speaking Indian by transforming the coming and replacing it in the Indian's ability to stop the war of the Indian becomes an alien and slowly the personifying semiotic the despotic signifying regime the Indian combat mechanism of interpretation by stops alters and redirects the paradigmatic and pathological Indians can be not served as a colonial trace the every time a flow line of polite approaches contemporary encounters Indians also prevents a colonialist project that has made it possible the choice is to either confront the colonialism or to deflect and not being prepared to struggle the logic of set of colonialism entire system either freezes or reboots this stuff. Also there's independent offense based on the notion that they've conceded that we get to fiat the plan the notion that society-wide structural call that would change as a result of the call for reparations would be one in which health deficits are significantly reduced, but even otherwise it is one that is ethically accountable. Our Hill Collins evidence wasn't responded to in the ones he talked about as an ethical accountability. There has to be a discussion of costs and benefits, but based on what that ought to be the way that publics come to conclusions, even if you conclude that there's some things wrong with the one or that it is imperfect, those are necessarily contradictions to work out through the permutation as a juxtaposition between competing strategies that are not necessarily ununited in their total negation of the world that exists as is, but the only question becomes whether or not there is a new conception of health that can follow that. Ought we provide things like quality of care for black people and it's through things like geographical disaccess now or things like essential services. All of these things are not linked to a project of futurity because they're necessarily based in a non-white futurity, one that does not ensure the health of the nation, but you have no other way to get rid of the fact that white people exist. So, I don't know, there's no solvency deficits beyond the form of the app, and your authors mostly conclude that just gonna stop now.
You so right. Alright, you ready?
Alright, 1 second. Oh, you want me to send it right out?
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, it's not the bird one that's in the dot?
It is. But, you have it then.
Yeah, that's the. Okay.
Or is it
Oh, then we're chill.
different
Yeah,
bird?
no, it's the same one. It's the same one. Same one. Exactly.
Alright.
Okay.
Alright, you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're gonna ask about the bird card. Why isn't the native racialized?
No, so our bird evidence talks about why the native is racialized, but to presume that land determines the relationship.
Is that what we said?
Well, you said that the sort of relationship of the settler to space is one that always
We said that
predetermines
space
encounter.
is enacted on top of place. My
Okay.
question is, what relationship do you have this space, which the Cherokee were removed from?
Sure. So our argument has been one of historical accountability.
In the 1AC,
Since
where the
1AC.
fuck do you talk about native
Phil
people?
Collins evidence. Oh well, yeah, you're right. There was no specific spotlighting of like particular indigenous groups, but there was.
So
an
what
argument about
relationship
historical...
do you have to a space in which the Cherokee have been genocided from?
Right. So one that pays attention to the like systemic violence that has occurred.
Systemic violence of black people.
Yeah.
Yes, I know non-black people love to talk about anti-black violence because it's fucking sexy,
Well,
but that
I
seems
don't
to
think
be a
that's the
fungible
same
relationship to black scholarship.
I think
What
everyone-
relationship do you as a settler or you as a settler have to land which the Cherokee have been genocided from?
Right, and accountability for the violence that has occurred.
Yeah, you say that you produce accountability.
Why
Bitch,
not?
where?
Why
Like,
not?
I don't. Huh?
Like, why do you think we don't?
Because you don't talk about fucking native people and your own
think
bird
the land
evidence.
isn't... Sorry, go ahead.
Am I making an argument about land because I'm really confused? Tiffany King says that natives are in a trajectory of genocide in which they've been removed from land, not that there's an inherent relationship of native people to land. Your bird evidence says that natives are essentially, the specters of the world, right? And that they're Indians without ancestry. They just kind of, I just really don't understand what your relationship as a settler, how you get to get away with saying, we make people responsible, but what the fuck do you do?
Why is that not an act, I would ask first. But secondly, our argument here is that to
Just saying that
presume
people are
that there is a static native relationship to the colonized is exactly how violence has been enacted historically. It's not to deny the existence of the current relationship, but that we ought not ontologize, for example, the settler
Why?
relationship space, especially when there is, for example, the AF in question, right? Like, there's not, these relationships are not immutable insofar as the AF is not
Why?
one in favor of progress. I don't think you have a link to the AF. You have a link to the
I don't
sort
have
of...
a link to the app. I think I have a link to the way in which you have invisibilized. Right. Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Remember, land
Okay,
is
yeah,
infinitely
sure.
extending. It's not...
I'm not asked.
Okay.
My question was never about
Sure.
land. I think that you're misunderstanding the King argument.
Your card talks about space.
Why are you Wilderson's
Space is
conception of reparations toward the end of the world if you are national health care insurance?
Because it's a structural reform, right? Our Otterson evidence doesn't say that health insurance, that as per the app, is just that, right? But one that necessarily overhauls institutions that would create spillover effects in
Why are
education.
you Wilderson's
transportation, the very
understanding
system
of
of
reparations toward the end of the world if you are just a structural reform?
Because that is his conception, right? A structural analysis towards the end of the world, one that completely overhauls the system as is. That's why his argument is.
So
I
you
don't support.
can I ask a distinction question? If we win, that you are not an end to the system, right? That you are not a productive reparation or the correct reparation.
I think you have to win that we're not in the direction of that end to the system, right? Because we have made arguments
When
that
do
the
we
system
know that it
isn't
gets to
perfect.
destruction? We're not at the end. It's a liminal.
Right, to throw the system into epistemological question as well as question its own integrity is the process of getting to the end of the world. There's a process there that I think like.
We're
is
starting
important.
prep. You can stop talking.
Same thing.
Stop prep.
Any overviews, any things I should know?
Honestly, I'm starting the framework. So whatever you do with that, it's the top. So yeah, I'm not gonna play
Oh,
with you.
questions of how it ought to be. Okay, cool. Wait a second.
Nope. No cards. I know I gotta say. This is so close. I hate this. How this is. Okay.
I mean,
The only thing is that.
We're good?
Sean, stay away from
Stay
me.
away from me.
As you start the speech, go for it.
I'd like to still listen. Okay. Interpretation of the actions of the metaphysical evidence which is reason for our one correct to be based around the effects of possible limitation are based in political, there is ontological orientation, social ordinance, how debating is necessarily prior liberal, comes in intellectual hegemony turns there, education center because that debates come less about challenging and cognition and foreclosing opportunities for differential non-protection. This means that you have to prove that your research model is inferable for economic sense and know in me what area that will try to form the ways in which they are whatever the ETI whatever the Bell understand the ways in which they are able to reinvert the structure, but there's two reasons for why you're not, because one, you use the impetus of the lack of catharticism, i.e. the ideas of black labor, and use those poetics to mobilize there, but do not get into the idea of how that is materialized, i.e. the rhetoric a good academic model on how it should be better, the ways in which it is implemented, that the nature of its fairness, that the should be held to the burden of the things about physical epistemology, and it is fair because affirmative not necessarily reach those things in order to make their claims. Their referrals a form of sexual blood that allows for ideas of escapism, maybe not white escapism, but allows for white people to take away from the act that using reparations as a preferable term attached to universal healthcare gets them out of the violence because it disavows them from the historical trajectory. Now, last is real world being as far as adult production and integration represents substitute of the since boxes for state legitimacy without grappling with the fact that there is not a direct relationship between the unchanged. Thank you for the 2NC link. Rather, must also not become false figures, but we will explore certain ideological presumptions in the world they lead to a better load because it is the one see. As a doctor, such a fact will be effectuated with our ranks and theories of real world implications. The impact is cognitive dissonance. We access the internal two portable skills matter is focusing on the epistemic research model impacts how we relate to material structures. And he starts the 2AC with the foundations built our through slavery. I think the sharp of us would agree, but where we parts the ways in which we use that where we use that once as a form of cognition for the trajectories of the same ideas actions are built through a lens of fungibility. Do that more later on, but it will critique the ways in which the astral human, the necessary retail puts deposits black into a space in which we're always it's not a question of willing access to our relations, but rather a question of poesis. But I'll do more of that work. Though they say further more about structural analysis, if I would your structure, one is not changing the way in which power relations operate. Your structure is fucked up. It's fucking you really into the inner settlement that your harmonized evidence indicates that you do not ontology from the top of the one that thinks is off the side of the body and mass the narrative gratuity that deposits of the slavery, shaping the mediation of slavery, marking theft of the captain from his motive will, act desire, but that was literally a shape of the captain's irresistible drive to consume, and that sharp is called to being the riveted opposition of this life means that the captain of being able to create different relations with black boys, but can never reclaim the narrative because its very existence was designed through an annihilation of black subjectivity to shape the way that you value to make us health access not be understood as a contingent act against laws as a form of reprieve, but rather a process between the dialectic between master and slave designed opposition to a black subject of woman ontology framing line with the direction of the lingual and terminal soul message of the fermentation now and a character that does not start from the position of the whole can only be successful as to mediate themselves between the labor crowd and the slave and structure itself means that there is inevitable fatigue of confirmation that is driven by making it simple. How do you come to the decision that this is a good such only advocacy through its relationship with the whole, with the force or productivity that is from the absence or from the abject space of the human sexual not in and therefore not rupturing this meaningless world making impulse, which is another negation of the dialogue between Misha and Rodriguez. This might come to the level of relation now the ways in which we create a structure via immaterial forms of possibilities that presuppose the ways in which implicit biases create the trajectory for what a good policy versus a bad policy is, and how we're able to articulate or navigate through those spaces which are evidence and still look to concede that when we move towards ideas or calls for democracy, i.e. their evidence says that black people, the reason why movements do not work is because it's imperfect and they have not quite gotten to ideal democracy. When we say fuck democracy, there's no need to call for these principles because it is a root analogy, but also necessitates the annihilation of something that they say prioritize and help to change, but I don't think that you get to change. That's our futurity. Like if they see new forms of healthcare, I want everyone in this room to know that you're not fucking radical. You're a form of redistribution. You don't change the playing field. You just give maybe some forms of acknowledgement to the subjective, which is our problematic, that allows for the white someone to disavow themselves. All of their evidence says that when quote, because it's funny, they say that they're crossing evidence that well, many whites when we engage issues that touch them and their sense of justice will follow. I wonder what it means for sense of justice to touch whites. What does it mean for them to actively engage with black people and assumes a form of libidinal exchange, libidinal attachment not only to black people in forms of how we can consume or understand our relationship to them, but also as part of a communicative exchange of labor that our Grubbs argument says the ways in which schools created a mobile uprising against it, which means that we turn your uniqueness question of the alt-right, but you make more alt-right people be the one to see, because when we give black people more shit, it creates more violence. Man can't even get on a fucking knee without heightened forms of arousal. That's a really good phrase for it. Also, you're not an impossible new man. You didn't miss like us the level of a social, which does not challenge the ways in which the material forms of sociology are placed onto bodies. I linguistic determinism. What does it mean to name one? Something exists when you are written out. This is the part of history that I don't quite understand. They think that they agree with us on it. It says that the ways in which we go from slavery to land leasing to Jim Crow to the prison industrial complex to a fucking electing Trump, says that there's ways that we can unlock ourselves from that violence, but that violence has a very meaningful attachment to black people as a form of containment. But yes, but also it creates it creates both negrophilic and negrophobic reactions or relations to blackness that make it so that we feel good when we give away. We think that analysis of give away is problematic because it assumes that blackness is not already that loss. Cool. They denaturalize white activity, LOL, where you just see that when we touch the heartstones of what mobilizes white people, that is able to create some kind of revolutionary act. But I think you should push the 1AR to come to the level of analysis for why their structural critique moves into the real world and shapes how white people, who they say will inevitably exist, is able to orient or reorient the way in which black people are needed at labor exchange to produce the subjectivity of whiteness. That is why the poem begins with "Call me motherfucker," because that's the way in which existence is created. Without the forced productivity of black women that produce that communicative exchange, there is no structure. Redistribution plays into the process, right, of humanism, because it says when you do not play, or if you do not serve the whole, which I'll serve in the alternative, that meaning-making machine that is always, that says we should focus on the labor power of the slave, which is the commodity that anti-blackness uses to export outside. It abstracts the ways in which intracommunal expressions of love and care happen. The alternative says, fuck that to white people. What does that mean to them? Vote neg on presumption, because it says, Sean, that you should orient it to refusal to that process as the only rupture critique, because that it is precarious to the structure, mobilizes different forms of scholarship that is dissident to the ways in which white people can grasp it and take it out.
Let me know. Ready? Yeah. Alright, so first question, what is the form of structural empowerment and health that the alt creates?
I'm sorry?
What is the form of structural empowerment and health that the alt creates for black people? What does healthcare look like?
I don't think I'm going to have to win that the alt produces anything.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't think that that's the only one black people to produce.
That's kind of interesting. How do you meet your own interpretation for what the affirmative ought to do? Why is it not an unmeetable standard for
I
us?
said that you have to defend your academic project
and
said metaphysical assumptions of the world.
What defines those metaphysical assumptions? We've said what this health insurance scheme would look like. We've said what historical basis or metaphysical
that means that you
come at it
okay,
from.
so
what's the
are you
threshold?
ready for the response?
Yeah.
It means that in order for you to win the act, you have to win your ontological presumptions.
Okay, we have started from the same ontological claim.
We don't. We do.
Why not? Hold on, why not?
One, our read history, the ways in which we understand progress, right, as something that can possibly accrue to something beneficial. We think that that is the narrative of the state, to use that, right, to captivate and contain blackness into a same fungible metric.
Can I unpack that? What do you mean by something beneficial? Like, what would that mean? Just like any relationality?
Okay, as we can produce the concept of new healthcare, right? Quotes from the 2NC. But also,
so if we believe that healthcare is not
also separate, you're not a critique that focuses on the ontologizing of race.
I wonder why is that? Okay.
You think Rodriguez, bro? You think that's ontology?
That's not an argument on its own. Let's talk about the.
But it's a proof that you focus on the social constructs of race.
Let's talk about the cross evidence. So your argument here is that it creates a cognitive dissonance when we try to cater to white people.
Yeah.
Our argument has been that white people are never going to like racial justice or that violence. The only thing they listen to more than violence they commit is their own economic precarity. Why is the
I don't
link
think that the
argument
1AC forces that, like...
What is the link argument here? It's not like we love white people. The idea
no,
is that they will only get on when they realize they got something else.
All of the 1AC evidence says that we must bring issues of access and resources, because those are the issues that white people understand. When we talk about their money, when we talk about their pocketbook, that's when they act. We think that is a problematic way, right?
Yeah. Why?
Because money, when we tell
So
it allows for white people to think that once they give away their money, they're completely absolved from the problem of the anti-blackness.
So I'm going
We
to
think that is a misread.
Why is that true if it changes the foundation of the healthcare system?
I just don't agree
Why
that you
is that the same
change the
thing?
foundation
Okay,
of
so
healthcare
it's the
system.
internal link claim here, not that the actual reform itself.
Right, but you're using the outcome as a reason to justify the internal link.
Well,
Yes, you are.
Right,
And I'm saying that you don't get that.
So let's talk about
I'm not going to grandstand me into conceding shit.
what is implicit bias and where does it come from in healthcare?
I think that implicit bias, like, one is the libidinal portion of the argument, right?
Okay, why is
You want me to explain that?
yeah? How do we challenge libidinal investments?
The alternative.
That's
We're-
not an answer.
I think
How do you deconstruct libidinal investment?
Sure.
Right.
We do not participate in the project of not only liberalism, but we do not participate in the project of production. Because we think that production begs the question of productivity that is from the communicative exchange of labor that black women are forced to be in to create ideas of neutrality and objectivity, which is a relational argument that we make that produces structure, that produces the antagonism between the settler and that which he uses for infinite forms of horizon, which is our fungibility argument that black is never a person, but a thing that can be used to create a career with parameters. You don't gotta be condescending, bro.
No, I'm not.
You
That's
really
like-
don't
Don't
get
look at my
anti-black
camera.
to her.
So, don't. Because that will be an argument if you keep up.
Yeah, for You can just call me over, Jess.
Sorry, did you do something about the front?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I didn't catch that. I was just like, what? Are you talking to her or are you talking to me?
No, I'm talking to you. Everybody. You.
I'm the one. What's the... What if I tell you she filled out both my sheets of paper? Then I gotta have one?
Yeah,
You said a lot.
She does say a lot.
I mean, I'm sorry. I tried to cut down on spacing. I tried to fill it in, but yeah, that's 2 sheets of paper.
That front back? Yeah. Well, you don't got children. You don't got children.
I mean, I stopped here. I mean, I do got a little room for it.
So you really could.
I could, but then I'd be on this one.
True.
So you have your own sheet. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's cool. I mean, it's a separate argument.
One in our sheet, so y'all.
Yeah.
Not 2 for sheets.
I'm here.
The framing of national health care insurance as the reparations is literally fucking insulting. The attempt of incorporation also ratchets on the level of gratuity of violence against Native people. There's no reparation, nothing that can erase the genocide of the core 500 years of ongoing colonization. Natives predate and threaten the very core of their democratic experiment that can only limit the actualization of sovereignty there. This means that there's no possibility of permutation. You should understand the alternative as a refusal of genocide intent to speak that what has remained unspoken is a prioritization of wellness and integrity of Native communities as well as black communities. Throughout 2004, the U.S. is a nation defined by its original sin, the genocide of American Indians. There's no going back, no reparation, no atonement that can ever erase genocide. Raises the questions about the viability of democracy from the good life we built upon death of thousands. The U.S. has continually and opportunistically defined and redefined the political status of Indian nations. American Indian tribes are viewed as an inherent threat to the nation, poised to expose the lie of U.S. democracy. Its treatment of American Indians will isolate the democratic gains, revealing the tensions between indigenous struggles for sovereignty and struggles for democracy. The notion of tribes as internal sovereign or domestic dependent nations is stabilizing democracy. Democracy has been wielded with impunity as the first and most brilliant weapon of mass destruction. Now, the only ethical stance that one can take when confronted with the anti-black violence is to align ourselves by speaking at the level of gratuity. This means that establishing equity as a political project is precluded by the antagonism using the state and the form of reparation replicates anti-blackness in Native communities. When you say engage state action, Natives here establish tribal sovereignty. When you say reparations, Native here give back the land. Natives who use the settlers' tools end up replicating the anti-black violence through the internalization of colonial relations, which is why Cherokees own slaves and are still trying to exclude freedmen from Access to tribal resources now is predicated on a question of access. Where, standing on the land that the Cherokee and Catawba were removed from, your orientation in the space is one that determines genocide is a noun, not a verb, through not paying respects to the ongoing struggle against genocide through the attempted expansion of state social programs to encompass its access. King says that settlement is a process of making the bodies killing natives so that white people can indigenize themselves to Turtle Island. Political manifestations of genocide determine who is native by targeting bodies through phenotypical identification of the savage, i.e. through the flesh. To say that it's not tied to phenotype is a disavowal of the linguistic violence, the use of the redskin slur, or the way that native people are identified by the police and murdered as well. Now, triadic relations means that you have to give a damn about native people because you expand reparations means that you expand settlement, which means that you expand genocide. Marines kind of brush off of this responsibility in the 2AC cross-section should make you hella skeptical of their responsibility project. Their hypervisibility of anti-blackness is a metric in relation to natives is a narrative of fungibility that we should understand the specific impact that futurism and expansion of this has in the context of anti-redness at the level of theory and at the level of the plan versus a sexy black scholarship where everybody is moving to talk about black suffering as a tokenization of black scholarship in relation to the non-speaking of gratuitous violence against native people. Now, second is the 1AC's project of assimilation that overrides traditional healthcare through natural medicines and ceremony, which, make no mistake, we have ways of healthcare in our own communities and spaces that resolve the physical and spiritual health of our bodies. They instead throw money in a fundamentally bad healthcare system that is set up to blame natives for their own problems because it pushes off the onus on us for the disease that settlers bring to us. The rape and disposability of my body as a native from the app doesn't get things like get rid of things like the evidence standard, which is the basis for standardizing medicine across the U.S., i.e. what is identified as disease and what practices are accepted as treatment for. This increases internal colonizations are requiring black and native people to practice non-indigenous forms of medicine as is. Increasing the number of health clinics should be perceived as an extension of settlement. They say, we expanded access for you. Why didn't you go? Naturalizing the drive of natives towards death. It's also a reason why and you should forfeit refusal in the name of missing murdered indigenous women. Since in 2016, this move to make Indian women white to remove their status as Indians is strangulation of indigenous governance and political order, then settler possession meant coercive and modifying sometimes killing power had to target their bodies. These bodies were more than just flesh, they were signs, and they were in our sign systems and symbols that could affect political life. They had to be killed, or at least subjected, because what they were signaling and symbolizing was a direct threat to the settlement. We see white, heteropatriarchal white settler sovereignty ascend and show its face through legal move to dispossess people of land, of territory, to kill traditional governance forms of plan, traditional indigenous governance, sovereignty, and political life achieved through the imposition of federal law or slow processes of forced geographic removal, assimilation projects, and citizenship. Now, all settler colonial regimes have territories and an irreducible element of desire for territory, not exclusively labor and Indian woman's body, and settler regimes is loaded with meaning signifying other political orders, lend itself a dangerous possibility of reproducing Indian life in the most dangerously political orders. Indian women transmit the clan, and with that, family and responsibility related in this native women's bodies were settled or like the land and such, rendered unrapeable or highly rapeable, something that's already violated and violable with the great march to the extreme lace surplus to so-called productions helps us to understand murdered and missing indigenous native women are consistent with the ongoing project of dispossession. Their lights are shorter, they are poor, less educated, sicker, raped more frequently, and they disappear. This disappearance is not an unexplainable phenomenon. These mysterious disappearances are symptomatic of what administrators have called the Indian problem. Dispossession and settled governments are not up for examination and scrutiny in these times when the drive to death is apparent, when indigenous people are rising up all over in absolute concern, grief, and outrage. The language normatively should not be reconciliation, since the historical balance of colonialism is not over, it's ongoing. Now, last week, to make all of the above, our dishabs not only to the app, but to the permutation, a couple more arguments in the context of solidarity, which is their permutation. Now, they can't encompass native citizens as the context of grief that surrounds natives, which should not turn to reconciliation with the settler state, but instead refuse. The second is the plan is perceived as affirmative action, which implements movements like the alt-right through the anti-blackness is form of social capital. Increased black doctors doesn't make an ethical relation between white people. It's more likely that white people will shift to concierge doctors because they don't want to be treated by black people or near black people because they're perceived as net decreasing quality of care. And three is King says that coalitions with non-black people are destroyed by anti-black narratives of chaos assigned to reproductive labor, i.e. the wretched black woman that always distracts or always disagrees with us and prevents us from saving ourselves. It's the reason why refusal is the only option. Its only possible ethical stance is in relation to anti-black and anti-white violence.
You have 8, 10.
Yes.
It's a no speeches. 8, 10. 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122,
Well, that's a guitar story.
Yes, fine. Is it
Yours is plugged in. Mine's not plugged in. So.
That's fair.
Oh, right.
I'm down to see how the baby.
Separately though, right?
Yeah.
It was before, yeah.
Well, I found either one of it.
I think the last was it like when I was with my white partner? Or was there a time after? I debated at Weaver. No shade. But I debated at Weaver. How about partner? I would. It was what I had access to. I had no other option.
I didn't poker it. No.
Actually, that's so fake. Because then after that, I did not have a white partner. I did have an option, and I did take it. And I debated with that person, Stephen Sanchez. I don't really see Stephen. It was a good time. It's very caught in the run scam on it. Like, hi.
I don't say shit from the game.
I hate it.
We record all of our practice debates, and I don't say shit. Like,
I
nobody
accidentally
has
do.
access to them.
I accidentally picked up all the time. I'm like, oh
Right?
You're right. I got myself caught one time. I was just like, Jaleesa asked me if I want to hang out, and I told her I can't. I'm like, oh shit, this is recorded.
My bad. Right. Get my respectability. Hi. My name is Jasmine Pickens, and I did a bit for the University of Oklahoma. And I believe in the political project. It is the only way in which we can do good things. Which one am I talking about?
Including without laugh.
Question. No, that's the same one. Very good question. I found this book that maybe just how many cards?
Wait, did you say there were cards in them? There's
Who?
So, this started as a little something debate where I thought the 1AC right next to the 1AC.
You want to just do 2 and see 1 and
Yeah, I'm gonna do my very best to do exactly that. 2 and C1 and
Sure.
right. That way you don't have to actually do that. Mess around too much.
I'll figure that out in this situation.
The history of national health insurance is built on the history of the slave health as the framing issue for this debate is that we both agree on the ontology question. The question is what do we do by now? We meet their framework argument, but the alternative doesn't. The Afro versus epidemiological trends enforce questions of health insurance in terms of structural anti-blackness rather than cultural preferences, which reorients the very priorities that change the way the policy prescription goes out in the status quo. Our Artisan evidence defends a reparational heuristic as a new research paradigm and says a lot of their link arguments conflict with reparations as monetary inducements and the as reparational analysis, that is, reparations as critique, not reparations as closure. Artisan evidence is that analysis opens up new research paradigms for understanding health and sociological shifts. The insurance frame then changes the conversation around national health insurance. The first 2 cards of the 1AC provide uniqueness for this research paradigm. The status quo debates are race neutral, class focus. All of their link arguments are linked to inherency arguments are linked to the status quo, but not the affirmative refusal might be valuable in the abstract, but it's not valuable in the context of the 1AC's call for a massive structural overhaul. Massive structural overhaul of the healthcare system. The Balfour evidence at the bottom of the 1AC says that making history an outrage to the present reshapes the research paradigms in a way that shifts those conversations. It's not catharsis. This presumes reparations as closure, which is not the affirmative. Which is not the affirmative. We don't think that it's reparations as finality. We don't think it's perfect redress. But in the wake of slavery, the only way to conceptualize new forms of health is by forefronting that history. The alternative does not meet their own framework. They just say refusal, which isn't a justification for a new research model, which means the only option given the overwhelming ontology claims is to vote affirmative. Now we don't invert through poetics the fungibility argument. The presence is a call for health insurance as reparations that Black folks did in the 90s. That's not justifying our politics based on it, but it's an ethic of accountability arguments where ethical accountability arguments about what it means to be two non-black debaters to forefront the questions of the public experience, a question of how we can reconceptualize health given the wake of slavery. Our call is not separate from the call to end the world. The Wilderson evidence says that it calls into question the integrity of sovereignty and its coherence, and that reparations as a project toward the end of the world is also proven by our Balfour evidence that said that reparations is the beginning of a larger structural call that makes history the outreach to the present is fundamentally disagreeable with the way that the status quo civil society comprises itself. Now these link arguments are speculative without any solvency. Perhaps to the question of reparations, you cannot without any solvency question of reparations, and none of these link arguments actually apply to the way that our affirmatives employed. Now the cognitive dissonance arguments, our evidence indicates that the app is a process of forcing confrontation with health inequity that represents the ability for dissonance in the world of the app. For white people to get health insurance, they must recognize that history, the ontology debate, is an offense for them because we all exist in the wake of slavery. So the question is, what do we do now? Even if you agree the alt is good, it's not something that the app. Even if you agree that the alt is good, it's not something that the app inhibits. They've presented a valuable method for Black women, but there's still an ongoing conversation about single payer among the alt-right and the status quo. And the question, the alt-right and the status quo, is a question of derailing that larger conversation.
You do the interest convergence stuff there?
Oh yeah. The concession of all of the interest convergence arguments proves that we do not abdicate for the responsibility of white people, but rather forefront it in the context of national health insurance. That insurance is not accessible to them until that history is recognized, which means it holds history as a threat to as a constant threat to the present. It realizes that my accountability is never perfectly fulfilled, and that the social structures have created a slave health deficit that can never truly be redressed, but should be addressed in the status quo. Yes, we get permutations, not just a question of method. Method debate your refusal is not mutually exclusive with a larger call for a large call for structural overhaul the structural overhaul of the health system. It's not victim blaming. The alt-right argument is not victim blaming. They've actively said whether that refusal is good in the instances of the presencing of the 1AC, which just allows the status quo conversations about single payer to go unfettered. There's a fundamental uniqueness claim of all their alt-right arguments. Now the philophobia arguments, white nationalists have those libidinal desires. Now they've conceded for Rune's framing that the intensity of those desires, is what matters. The Matthews evidence talks about a massive uptick in fascist violence. You should conclude that the link turn always outweighs their refusal, because the structural overhaul of the affirmative complicates the way that their link arguments actually play out. Now, what does it matter? What does it matter if reparations is a problematic term if it changes the structural position of non-black people? There are just fundamental uniqueness problems with all of their link arguments. Their link arguments are indicts to our inherency. Page which is talking about to our inherency arguments, which are about status quo conversations and single payer. The affirmative reorients that conversation and forefronts the same history that their evidence is necessary now.
This is the one in R?
Yeah.
Cool. You know the side on that card? It started with a W.
Bird.
No, the other one. W. It doesn't matter.
Then?
2EC piece of evidence, I forgot the author's name, but it starts with a W, says that challenging anti-blackness is also a challenge to the structures of colonialism, says that we rupture the conditions of sovereignty, also proven by the 2EC Wilderson evidence that says that these reparations represent that challenge. The question becomes, what is our strategy for opposing the worst instantiations of those forms of violence? As the Bird piece of evidence also says that when we presume that these encounters, prior to them happening, that is bad. Accountability is the only way that the settler doesn't risk pathologizing indigenous populations while also not creating absolute indifference. The 1EC never believes that reconciliation was ever possible, but within the context of those violences, the app is in line with their scholarship and is the better call for structural change. The Balfour evidence should help frame how you view this link argument. Our app is not reparations as closure or perfect reconciliation, but rather beginning of a larger structural overhaul of society.
What else was
Saying none of their arguments about genocide matter unless they can prove the opposite, which is that the app actively creates those things.
Sure.
Right? Just saying that sovereignty legitimizes those things is not a link that the app propagates.
Right. So all of their link arguments about sovereignty and genocide, etc., say that the app ignores those things, but they don't have an offensive reason why we propagate it. The structural overhaul, or like the structural call of the affirmative, is still productive in the context of, it's still productive in that context.
At the end, there's no impact to the ontology debate beyond the material consequences.
There's no impact to the ontology debate beyond the material consequences. We're the only one that proposes an actual reason right now.
We have 8 minutes.
all the time with my chick.
Sean, come on. Hey, Sean, if you're watching this, I don't know why you would be because you're judging us today. Come back.
I think he's like on the toilet or something.
Just like, let's just
You
watch.
go watch us later and hear you saying that.
I just need him to come down. The ideas are mine now. Oh my God, I spoke you into existence, Sean. You should. Are you ready? Because I am.
Are you breakdown? Or are you gonna start with one of our things?
It's gonna be
Sorry, I got picked.
no, it's just gonna be
What?
the one and our things and the two and C things are gonna converge on just
Yeah.
one. So we're
Convergence.
gonna go for tomorrow.
One might say interest,
So,
but that we would not say that.
is that border at all? Or like
The
one-
top.
The top one.
Bottom.
Got you.
The top. Oh.
Reparations. Okay.
Alright, you tried.
Sure. Okay. We'll just talk anyway. So.
All right. We good?
Yeah.
The affirmative shall defend the metaphysical class and aspect research one out there. Now, this is not to say one that you have to defend that the ethics is a good idea, but rather a question of the ways in which metaphysics questions the social ordering of your academic premises means that one, you have to defend or win on ontology. I don't think the one in our spends enough time on as to why my ontology term is wrong. It says they are the same if I prove a differential. This is one, a reason why the lingua wall goes my way, but also two, this is a solvency deficit to the one AC because they do not challenge the way in which structure is produced, but rather demystify the ways in which violence is enacted onto the black subject. Now, they say that the negative is not cultural preference, the cultural preference, but understand the argument when we see the ways in which immateriality shapes the way in which we create or produce our relations to space that where settlement is produced, where we create tangible markers for how we're able to propose society and our relationships to it. So the negative is the only way in which we can understand the ways in which that trajectory functions. But they see the weird links to inheritance. They'll do more of that work above. But I think one, when you can see the fiat argument on real world that you do not create the ways in which we are not policymakers and the ways in which we do not create a direct relationship between material interactions between bodies. We do not change the ways in which relationality functions, which I think is the big differential in my ontology argument, but also means that when you say white people are here, so you gotta deal with these fuck a white person. What's that? It's just the ways in which white subjectivities build us the object of desire using fungibility of the slave to produce the coherency via horizons. Dylan impacts a little bit more and saying futurity is a link also conceded in the 1AR. It's not an idea when you move beyond, but that you do not challenge the way in which distributions of power between subjects created because it says that the white subjects need to give away its access in order to produce inequity of the say within this full matters equity is produced through the fungible laboring of black women to produce this idea of immateriality through poesis or an idea of tropes represents says the ways in which that instrumentalization of flesh produces a commodity in the first place, in the ways in which we're able to understand rights. Dylan says that when we use that the state uses this trajectory of history to contain when we do, there's no response to the example of this when I say slavery to land leasing to Jim Crow to Reconstruction to the presidential complex structures may change with the violence enacted based off of these interactions. Does not mean that there's a terminal offensive reason for why the firms are able to break out of there or move outside to come to the end, but they do not create the end. They say it's a yet to come, but using a future type of principle of what ought to be that corrected now, conceding that when you do not start from the holes, you only reinvert the ways in which Schminism is acted. No response to someone else. Why you should be very skeptical to a art extension when it says the ways in which meaning making is produced through that form of abjection is the ways in which a black woman produce the interactions of the exchanges, what produces ideas of subjectivity, what ideas of alternative forms of kinship and meaning making. How do white people know when they have done wrong shit in relation to the dispossession that they have caused? They do not challenge that relation, but rather they disavow themselves from the way in which that happens. They will say interest convergence. You can see the 2NC argument, the 2NC argument about the ways in which principle first implementation does not have congruency. Remember when I said affirmative action and busing from the ways in which white people were like, yeah, that sounds real fucking cool. Black people should have rights to act, but when that shit broke through, it this is the reason why the permutation doesn't make much sense, because that form of refusal is not the academic portion of the alternative that says that form of labor of exchange that produces meaning for the settler should not be one that is condoned, that settled, but the ideas of meaning making to create ideas of inequity and access are all part and parcel of that process. We refuse to present a description of a future, but we also refuse to create a metric of analysis that the settler can take away. Don't answer to a simple argument that why should I give shit to a white person, because it's not a question of me giving it, that they take the essence of the reproductive labor of the black body to create a form of empathetic identification. No response to this means that you do not change the ways in which white people interact. The one in our LOL, I think that's evidence of the card that you do not know. The name two does not respond to the king evidence, that's the ways in which functionalities of crudeness through the settler, creating coherency through the erasure of the native via the relation to place, but also the ways in which that is spatialized to blackness, creating a command. It says that the ways in which those interlocate with one another create the ideas of humanity. The settler is able to create a settlement through that. You can see how that materialized idea. You do not change the way in which FDA regulations, not change the standardization of medicine, the ways in which the enactment or treatment happens toward black people still during consumptory, and it will not challenge the ways in which colonization is an understanding of the ways in which sickness and pollen to black and red bodies will continue to happen. Yeah. Cool.
Right, we have 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, Brent.
Yeah, I'm gonna get water real quick. So I don't know what water is. I'm just kind of like, oh, it's like staircase. Oh, you know, it's not busy. That's fine. Hello. He's not wrong. Like now? Yeah.
Yeah, he's watching our stream.
Oh, right. Hi, Darius. This is your shout out that you wanted me to give you. I'm now giving you.
Hey, Darius.
Hi. And Brittany. Because, wait, fuck that. Hi, Brittany. First. Hi, Darius. Second. Oh, hi, Mom. She's not watching this, though. That's really meaningless. But hey, some cake. For the archive. For the archive. I feel like, so she can retrace this. Like, she did say that.
You know, I always gotta put my little signature. Hey. I was probably dusty, to be honest. I'm gonna just tell you, Jasmine, I was getting goosebumps outside listening to you.
When?
That just right there in that 2NR.
Thank you. Because like this, I was like, let's go police this motherfucker. You know, I'll be in the whole not for that. This is really good. Do y'all? Show hands. I'm sorry.
This is so cool because it's like, even though this is a debate round, we kind of all sitting around the table. So it's like, hey, I'm in the debate round. I'm just here to say, hey, this is cool. I don't know. I didn't think that I would miss the actual debating itself as much as I feel like I do. But it's kind of just because when you have a debater in you, it don't go away. So when you hear somebody say something, you're like, I wouldn't have said that.
Right.
I would have said this.
Okay, so I think the best way to do this would be like put.
You already stopped yourself.
Put my stuff somewhere and just like draw a line, and then I'll answer exactly the 2 and R down. I'll tell you when to transition.
Yeah, overview line by line.
Yeah, but to make it so easy for you, if you put the first part somewhere different.
I promise you make it more complicated.
Right. I have this piece of paper that has
I'm
space.
responding
I'm
to
gonna write your 2 and
Yeah.
R on it.
I haven't
I'm
even-
gonna, like,
Wait, is it like-
I'm just
is it
trying.
like
I got it.
comments or something?
I got it.
Oh, you talking about on Facebook? Oh.
Oh wow, so easy, 1 to 1.
Nah, I already messed that up too because I ain't got enough space.
Oh rip. Okay, well,
Right.
do we have the big ding ding timer?
Okay. I didn't even hear what you said. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
just down.
Overview line by line.
Right. So for you, that didn't change anything what I did.
I was trying.
You're trying to be more hilly, but
Right.
it got complicated.
I just heard, I'm about to get my speech.
Okay. Very serious. I want to scream.
No, go ahead. Oh, sorry. Oh. That was funny.
I'm done.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
The reason we win this debate is because we're still winning that structural societal change over harm reduction is always better in a world in which it is easier to negate because the pessimism of the present moment has conditioned you against it, but you should flip your calculus in a world in which both are present from the question of whether or not health insurance as a form of starting from institutionalized neglect in the wake of slavery is one that makes a better, equitable system in a world where the alternative has no alternative conception of how here ought to look at this debate is going to come down to whether or not a health insurance system based in the same reparational analysis from structural reform is the link to futurity or whether it is commensurate with the alternative. So go to the critique or the reason I'm going to go for permutation to vote is that 2NR is good in a lot of places, but it goes for a lot of chicken and egg pushback from the 2N, but no material examples of what care then looks like as a result of the alternative. You cannot magnify the ontology debate is not inflated at the level of the political, which is where violence actually enacts itself at the level of the political. They win 100% of the examples, you can still vote because the reasons of not doing so. The proper permutation to vote, you have to fundamentally push for the end of the world as we know this epistemological coherence and institutional integrity of the USG collapses when the recognition of repair as impossible, but it's still necessary nonetheless. The stuff of antagonisms can only be resolved through the kind of symbolic intervention at the level of reparational analysis, but also the institutional procedure of reparation impacted by our willingness of legal remedies are inevitably inadequate, but the embracing limited scope of violence while calling attention to the tension between that kind of pain and compensation, the act of reparational analysis, the switching the onus on the federal government to center the structural opposition of slavery from the starting point in which we make healthcare systems solves all in a couple ways. One is this comes about through economic inducements, using the libidinal fears of white people against themselves as a justification for equity is good in this country because our crossing evidence, which is the interest convergence argument, talk about how it's the only way for material balance at the level of disease, structural and health and societal inequity to become politicized. Secondly, is we have an alternative to refusing this strategy, which is a tiebreaker. They did not answer the Balfour evidence that fill-in occurs when the alt-right is mobilizing and reacher spends from the alt-right are priming themselves to push further inward, which becomes a way they will unify around the health of the white nationalist league through a single payer policy, while in some ways that is never the combination of the plus the alternative would be we could create the kind of reformulation or counterpower in the public sphere that would take away their power because it would be one force in the deadness of slavery. A couple of net benefits I'll highlight first is that the alt to does not meet their own framework, which is a conceded argument from French when it's structurally unfair because it provides a form of negation that doesn't create a different care practice where care or impact that the firm is the only total overall of that system because it forces an ethos of accountability that neither falls into the trap of structural absolvement nor does it try to pathologize black people. Look, they just said negation and didn't explain how any of y'all resolves the link argument. They have to do that work. You shouldn't make the cross application for them because we have a very clear structural claim from the 2AC. Secondly, is the net benefit link arguments are all concessions to the permanent issue that non-black and black subjects exist in the wake of slavery. The A plus the all creates the preferable option by centering the yes, we have to call for the end of the reproductive future, but that's not distinct from the double side of that, which is to ensure the health of black populations. Brent does a good job of this when he says the feeling, the phobia, debate, we have to interpret varying levels of intensity in blackness, include that when it's one base and death, the outcome would potentially be healthcare in black communities, which outweighs any risk of the reparations is problematic. Things like high reimbursement rates for black doctors, incentivizing health training in black community, geographic access, which are all outlined in our honors and evidence and not implicated by any of their link arguments in this debate, which is the reason why you can vote on the permutation, especially when there's no severance or intrinsicness arguments in the 2 and R. It's a reason you can always prefer the content of the app versus the form that it might potentially take. Their indigeneity arguments are sort of a wash because they didn't know the truth that the app might reinforce sovereignty. The combination of the all plus the app somehow resolves that relationship to redness, or the all alone is no better, given that the framing of the ethos of accountability becomes preferable to neither pathologizing in each community, but also so that we cannot be radically indifferent in the face of the violence. I would go line by line. The first argument of metaphysics. One is that we both justified the epistemology and the ontology of where our scholarship comes from, both from the presencing of black voices that had started in 1901 from Bernalio Randall, as well as saying that that is good because it reverses trends in epidemiological research that have prioritized white understandings of health and structurally disempower the impact to ours. Instead, we have a violence at the level of the material, which is the only thing your ballot can signify. What does it mean to vote for an ontological claim of violence when they don't have a way that tangibilizes itself other than kind of repeated assertions that don't have necessarily the impact explanation that the tangible relationship in the centers the kind of structural accountability that they talk about. Fiat actualizes because it's a kind of ethical reiteration of what praxis we ought to endorse. You don't have to conclude that everything leaves this debate, but yes, it is good for us to enforce a question of what non-white relationality to white people is in the context of health. When we're winning arguments of whether utopian premising is necessarily good when you don't have any other pushback about how the alternative mandate is of the Dylan evidence. Yes, it is distinct that there are sort of kind of maternal violence that occur at the level of time itself. But yes, but just because that is true, it doesn't mean that we have a way to challenge that material violence other than its kind of productive manifestations, i.e., for example, a slave health deficit that occurs from persistent chronic hypertension, etc. in this article, which means that yes, we're not going to resolve every problem with time, but we do have an intervention at the level of its most proximate form of violence, and you have just said violence accumulates with no explanation for what that means about how we as individuals should relate to that outside of the health context. The linearity arguments are not intractable. There's always possibility for futurities within the moment insofar as there's a challenge to healthcare in this episode. You should hold the line because they have not said that just because we're in the wake of slavery that there isn't a possibility for challenging its worst violences. What does that mean for non-white people? The alt doesn't somehow get rid of that, which means that it becomes the only option insofar as our Balfour evidence and our kind of right-wing fill-in arguments are true. Their arguments about interest convergences are that the affirmative action, they use the affirmative action examples to prove whether it's bad. One, this is a bad example because obviously white people don't have anything at stake in affirmative action, but healthcare is one in which they will die. The ACA debates prove because they don't benefit from having busing systems to their white communities because they already have those things, but healthcare is something they cannot do without, which is why it is different. They have a very persuasive attempt at saying that we don't have a way to explain intensities, but you have no way to explain why the alt somehow changes the way that those intensities happen or sutures a better relationship with them when you should not do the work for them when we are doing it. There are less arguments about empathetic identification, not offensive. We prove that you don't have a link to the app until you conclude that the app actively propagates anti-black systems versus a structural call that begins at kind of inflating places. Yeah, there's no structural distinction between the app strategy and the alt.
All those 2 easy cards.